Hello and welcome to our writing workshop for Year 2. I'm Mrs. Elliott and welcome to our workshop. I'm here to talk to you about ideas for home learning, how we teach English at Dilks, and about expectations that we have. So I'm just going to go through with you the aims of the session. So what we'll be talking about is the year group expectations for writing, how we teach writing, so that's through the process of talk for writing, which I'll go through in a moment, grammar and punctuation, spelling, handwriting, and how to support your child at home. So here we have the Year 2 expectations. So looking at it like that, sometimes it can look quite daunting, but it's broken down into quite manageable chunks for the children. So if you look at the autumn section, there are targets such as using finger spaces and adding labels for information, so they're quite manageable targets. Whereas in the summer, we'll be looking more at things like using a range of wow words, different types of openers, and evaluating writing independently. So those are our targets there. So Year 2 is a little bit different from the other year groups because we are also assessed by national benchmarks. So there isn't a SATs for writing. The children are assessed on their bookwork, and these are the standards that they are assessed against. So if they can achieve all of these targets, your child will be working towards the expected standard for Year 2. And these can be found online if you search Key Stage 1 expected standards for writing. They will come up on one of the websites. These ones are working at the expected standard, so in order to get that, they will need all of these in the expected, working towards expected, and then all of these in the expected standard as well. So this will be targets that they can achieve independently and without adult support. And these targets are for children that are working at greater depth. So these will encompass, again, the working towards targets, the expected targets, and they should be able to do all of those greater depth targets as well. So we use Talk for Writing for doing English, and there's a picture of Pi Corbett on there. It says, "You cannot create out of nothing. Children who know no stories will not be able to create their own. The bigger the resource to draw upon, the more creative children can be." So we fully use this sort of method. So we use the immerse method first. So we teach the children a story, so they learn the story, they sort the story, they change the vocabulary, and then the next stage they innovate, so they make it their own story, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail. So this is the first stage, so imitation and immersion. So during this phase, the children learn a model text using actions and story maps. The key to success for children is that they internalise the text type through repetition and rehearsal. They explore the structure of the narrative and investigate the different characters, settings, and events. They also begin to look closely at the language used and the effect that this has on the reader. We call this process read as a writer. The classroom becomes that dynamic, interactive resource filled with words, ideas, sentence types, and language tools collected by the children to then use in their stories later. So at this stage, we often do a story map. Children often make their own story maps as well. There's a lot of drama involved, and they sort of fully become involved in the story. So here's some examples here from some of our English working rules. So the example story map you can see at the top is the papaya that spoke. So the children would have changed their story, perhaps to the apple that spoke, and in there's a farmer, so they might have changed the farmer as well to a teacher or a shopkeeper, perhaps, to make their story their own. But it doesn't become sort of as daunting as if they're sort of trying to make something out of scratch. That's sort of why we use this framework here. And you can see that we really push vocabulary and sort of the thoughts and feelings and actions behind characters as well. So phase 2 is the innovation. So during this phase, the teacher and children begin to change aspects of the model text using their own ideas. So we explore the text using different characters, settings or events, and new ideas for descriptive language while sticking closely to the structure. Again, this is so that children don't become too daunted by writing the story itself. And then in shared write, the teacher will use the ideas from the children in class and sort of challenge their vocabulary as well. So children need to plan a complete story map using a simple story map, mountain, and they box it up plan. They use their sounds knowledge and story word banks to write independently. We also have descriptosauruses on the table, which are tailored for each story so that children can select vocabulary that's appropriate to the text. They should check their writing for any hurried errors and make sure it makes sense. Edit their work, making use of those marking codes. So you might have heard the children talking about marking codes. They're things that we write, things like SP in the margin for spelling or T for tense that they might need to change. We use joined up handwriting that is legible and clear. So that's what the children need to do, and teachers will model this as well. We'll talk about handwriting a little bit more in just a moment. So non-fiction, so there's usually 1 or 2 week units of work in between narrative units. So non-fiction units of work are taught in a very similar way. So children immerse themselves in the model text so that they have a good understanding of the structure and key language features used. For example, this week we are looking at a non-chronological report about nocturnal animals. So the children have looked at several different examples of non-chronological reports. So we've looked at the features, we've pulled out the language, as well as looking at different types of animals for them to pull that language out of. There's lots of shared writing opportunities using ideas from all children and to provide a good example of expectations. So we have our Star Writer of the Week, which promotes a real love of writing, and each week a new Writer of the Week is chosen, along with a Handwriter of the Week as well. The children get very excited about getting a sparkly pencil. I think it really is their highlight. Grammar. So the new national curriculum includes a greater emphasis on understanding and using the grammar rules from year 1 to year 6. Pupils will be formally assessed on their grammar, punctuation, and spelling at the end of year 2 and year 6, and informally in other years. So there's nothing to worry about. The children have already undertaken quite a few sort of mini tests, and we do sort of grammar questions in class at our starters so that they get used to the styles of questions. So grammar is taught in literacy both as part of the work and a standalone activity. So like I just said, sometimes we'll use a starter for English to go over those sort of grammar different question types. So it's important to use the correct terminology when talking to the children about grammar. For example, adjectives and adverbs rather than describing words. So even when you're out and about in the shops, if you can see adjectives, point them out to children and say, oh, what type of word do you think that is? That would be really helpful. So here's a few different examples of I can. So in words, so I can make nouns, adjectives using suffixes, make compound words, compare and est words. So these are all sort of examples of things that you could be doing at home and sort of questioning children about with them as well. Spelling. So we have daily spelling sessions here at Dilks. And they're taught using the Spelling Share programme. So children practice the rule with different games and activities, but they are expected also to practice them online and on paper if they want to weekly. So spelling sheets are handed out on request. They we normally just do them online now, and they are completed at home. I know lots of you do this on Purple Match, which is fantastic, and it's lovely to keep them in a folder perhaps at home so that previous spellings can be readdressed and you can talk to the children about those spellings. Handwriting. So our handwriting expectations are that it's joined up and in cursive joins, so precursive joins. So handwriting across the school, we use handwriting scheme, which has a lead-in stroke. So children practice joining their writing in specific handwriting sessions, as well as it being modelled during writing. We're also focusing in our early morning work at the moment, doing lots of writing for early morning work. Lots of children are struggling sort of with the correct formations of specific letters, which I've put in red on the next slide. So this is something that you could work on with your children at home. So these are the letters. So these red letters in particular are letters that they do find quite tricky, particularly those letters that have got descenders and where to sit them on the line. So if that's something that you could practice with your child at home, that would be fantastic. Okay, so support at home. So weekly homework tasks are set. Lots of children are handing them in. We don't hand it in on paper anymore, which is really good. So we're using our online system, and we have a photo as well of written work could be uploaded to Purple Mash, which is really lovely to see. So spelling practice, so that should be practiced daily, and it only needs sort of 5 minutes. Regular writing practice in their homework diary would be a great one. And writing for purpose at home, for example, even doing things like a thank you letter would be great. So links between reading and writing. So it's important that children are reading regularly at home and challenging themselves with different text types. There are several links between reading and writing. Reading different genres helps to make sure that those sort of text types and make it easier for them then to create their own versions. Reading helps them to widen and develop their vocabulary bank, enabling them to develop more sort of detail in their writing. And also children reading about a range of characters and settings really going to help them to make original writing, which would be lovely. Children experience a wide range of punctuation marks also when reading, and this can help them really to understand them in their own writing. So things that you can do at home to help. So there's lots of online games and activities. Practicing spellings. So obviously this is done formally at school, but could be done once you're walking to school or in the car or something like that. Making a vocabulary bank of interesting words as your child reads. Promoting that love of vocabulary is so important for your children. Encouraging them to write every day, for example, keeping a short diary of what they've done. Write a story or a character description from a film they've watched. Write a spoof piece of text for your child to improve. Children absolutely love correcting your mistakes. So focus on those sort of common word spellings and sort of missed punctuation. They absolutely love it. Encourage your children to enter sort of jokes writing competitions and promote Writer of the Week and say, oh, I wonder if it's your turn this week for the sparkly pencil, and ask children about what they're learning. That's so powerful. Things like asking them to retell you the story at home, and encouraging them to use Kung Fu punctuation to show you where that goes. That is it from me. I hope you have found that informative. If you've got any more questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much. Bye bye.